Hey, wake up. They let us get to Friday again. And if you didn't wake up and you're still hearing my voice, then that's a whole other issue. But either way, welcome to TheLeaf podcast. If this is your first time listening to TheLeaf podcast, it's like my other two videos, but this one is more conversational, more discussional, I guess is the word. That's not a word at all, is it? Anyways, this episode is going to be about black-eyed people, black-eyed children, and the like. And where the inspiration for it came, I think that somebody posted a comment saying that it was their favorite topic, and I couldn't remember the last time that I did a video on black-eyed children, black-eyed kids, or black-eyed people, whatever you want to call them. So just before I get into any encounters, I'd like to pose the question to you. What do you think black-eyed people are? Personally, I don't really have any ideas. I have heard 3 different theories though. The first theory is that they are the offspring or children of men in black. This is because that they both kind of share the same mannerisms. They both kind of share the same high strangeness about them. When they come and go, weird things happen in before or after, or even during. Another theory that I'm familiar with, and this is more in the UFO kind of UAP community, where they believe that black-eyed people, even men in black, are actually gray human hybrids. And that's why they've been collecting human DNA, human material, all this time, is to try and make hybrids. Now, why they would do that varies drastically depending on what side of the aisle that you're in. One side of the aisle, at least from what I've read anyways, I could be off on all the other kinds of theories because there's a wide net with the UAP UFO community. But one side of the aisle seems to think that it's more of an experiment, just to see if they can, and Lord knows what happens to the people when they let them into their house, or let them into their car, or follow them in some way, or let themselves get caught. The other one is that people think that they're doing it because humans have a soul and they don't. So they're trying to make their own humans, or their own hybrids, to try and figure out what makes us special, why they don't have a soul, why we do. And the other theory that I've heard anyways is that they're just demonic. They're demon-human hybrids. And that would explain why there's all this poltergeist-like activity before and after they show up. And it would also explain why their eyes are black. And it may also explain why they're so emotionless. Or how they're somehow, sometimes, able to seemingly inject thoughts into other people's heads. And I have a couple of encounters, I think, where something like that happens. And generally, too, we only hear about the ones of people who, I don't want to say survived the encounter, but people who are openly talking about what happened, or people that didn't have anything horrible happen to them afterwards, whether this be letting them in their house, letting them in their car, or what have you. But those are just the theories that I've heard, or I'm probably butchering the theories, but that's just what I remember hearing about them, and what I have in my notes here. So, with that being said, let me know what you think they are down below. And now, we'll get into some encounters with these things. This first one comes from an over-the-road trucker, and it happened on September the 1st, 2021. I worked at one company for 8 months, and then I got the job for the carrier that I work for now. This was in 2021. So I'm driving through the California desert, and I stop at a Love's Travel Plaza for the night. It was about 2 to 3 a.m. I hear this knocking on my driver's side door, so I get up out of my bunk, and what do I see but 2 kids. One boy, about 10 or 11, and one girl about 7 or 8. So I lower my window, and I ask if they were okay. Did they need help? I was genuinely worried about their safety, but only the boy ever spoke. He asked if I could let them into my cab until their parents got there to pick them up. This seemed very sketchy, and I didn't want people to think I was kidnapping them, so I suggested that I call the store employee and let them know that there would be 2 kids coming in to wait for their parents. Well, he didn't like that. I could see it in his eyes because his head was facing downward, but I saw his mouth frown. He kept insisting that I let them in, and every time I said no and offered an alternative, he would get angrier in tone and more persistent. So I just told him that I called the store as my initial plan, and that's final. He looked up at me with completely black eyes, and the girl looked up too, almost robotically like he did, with the same eyes. I rolled up my window and crawled into my bunk and closed the curtain. Then, as I got over to look out my tinted bunk window, both their heads turned to look right at me. I took a bunch of Advil and Tylenol PM, remotely locked my doors, and hid under the covers until the sleep aid kicked in. By the time morning came, they were nowhere to be seen, and no traces of them. So, what do you think was going on here? Why did they want inside this specific person's truck? Better yet, why didn't they just go inside the plaza? There would be more people in there, you'd think. But maybe because it was too public, too in the light. And one other thing that comes to mind with a lot of these is they don't notice at first that these kids or these people have black eyes. There seems to be a bit of a conversation that happens, and then they seemingly can't keep the disguise on, or they just reveal themselves, or they always have their head down or something. I've often wondered why that was with these specific kind of encounters. Why are they unable to keep the disguise up if you just say no? And maybe it's because they just say screw it, and they're going to try to make you afraid enough to obey what they say, which we don't know how many people fall for it or do it because we only hear about the ones that rejected them. And this next encounter is from a park in some unknown area. This guy says that he was on a date, that it was pretty late at night. They decided to take a walk through the park. They found some children that were still playing on the equipment, even though this is well past midnight, and the lights of the park, kind of the closing time, is 9 p.m. But they were still there, just playing in complete darkness. But something was different about these children. Their clothing was a little bit off. They were wearing oversized or adult clothing or something like that. Their laughter was high-pitched and sinister, and their eyes were all kinds of screwed up. They were black, like petroleum black. We were instantly terrified. We say nope and turn around. We tried to leave the park, but these children surrounded us. As they surrounded us, they started to get closer, and their smiles were growing wider and wider. We felt an icy chill run down our spines. My skin filled with goosebumps. I could literally feel the hair on my arms rising. They were just staring at us with their creepy smiles. Our survival instincts kick in, and we run, never looking back. From that night on, we never saw the children in the park ever again. But I never forgot the sound of their chilling laughter or the sight of their eyes. And to this day, people in the suburb still whisper about the creepy black-eyed children who play in the park late at night. Now that one seems to put me more in the mind of a demonic presence because it's isolated to that one area, and not only that, the children's laughter sounds sinister and high-pitched. I don't know about you, I could be different from you, but I feel like that one seems to lean more into the demonic nature. But then again, maybe these entities just feed off of fear, and that's what they were doing in that case. And let me know if you live in a suburb that has stories like this, or a town that has stories like this. I'd be really curious to hear about them. I don't live in a suburb, nor have I ever. I've only lived in small towns and a couple cities, but even then, there were still some really weird stories. About 10 or 11 years ago, I did used to live in a city, and I remember even then, I would hear other people in the apartment building talk about seeing weird things, usually at the daycare after hours, or the ones that used to go for runs early in the morning would say that they've seen some weird things at nearby parks. Of course, I didn't press these people for their stories because I didn't really know them. And to be honest, one thing that was very weird for me when living in the city was not really knowing who your neighbor was and not really knowing sometimes who your roommate was. But I know people who I did grow up with who felt the opposite to me about that. They thought it was more of a new adventure, whereas I thought it was very odd. But that's just me and how I grew up. But anyways, back to more of these encounters. This one seems to also lean into the demonic aspect about it, but let me know what you think, of course. So, I was just a kid. My parents were going through a bitter custody battle for myself and my little sister. I was staying with my grandparents through the week while my parents were at work. One day, my dad picks me up from his mother's house to drop me off at my other grandmother's house so he can watch me because it was my mom's day with me or whatever. My grandmother always told me, if the blinds in the front window are up, then I'm home, but if they're down, then no one is home. We get there, and the blinds are down. I tried to tell my dad, but he didn't really want to hear it. My dad always really never liked me. He loved my sister more, and he would tell me this on several occasions when he got angry. He had a spare key to this house, so he opens it and yells, "I'm leaving him here so his mom can pick him up later," assuming that somebody was home, and then leaves. Of course, no one was home. After I realized this, I immediately ran amok, doing stupid little kid stuff, eating cookies and playing with toys and being loud and all that. After a while, though, I begin to feel something, a sense of absolute dread. I go upstairs because I'm feeling uneasy on the whole first floor. My grandparents' house had a dumbwaiter, but there was only the chute left, so it kind of fell straight to the basement. This was an old 3-story house. Something compels me to open the chute. I look down to the basement. I can see a woman in all white, with very pale skin and hair, staring up at me. And not only that, she has pitch black eyes. She motions to me with her arms, as if saying, "Jump down to me." And then suddenly, I hear all these voices around me saying, "Jump, jump, jump." And the thoughts are even injected into my head, telling me to jump down the chute. I back away and slam the little door and book it for Grandma's room. I hide under the covers until my grandmother got home. I tell her, but she just thinks I'm traumatized from being left alone at the house. Nobody ever believed me, except for my little sister. Later, my sister would go on to tell me that she has seen the black lady too, and that she would try to motion her to play in the tub when it was full, to run down the stairs, to do similar things like jump down the chute. All of these things would have been deadly for her at that age. So what do you think about that one? Do you think that it leans more into the demonic kind of side of things? Or do you think that it was something like the other ones, where a black-eyed person wants into their house to use their phone, and they let them in, and they disappeared, and that happened at some point in the past, and now they're just there, always trying to cause fear or misery or dread in some kind? Of course, let me know what you think down in the comments. And now this one seems to be more of kind of the classic kind of encounters of this nature. I stopped to use the bathroom and get a coffee from the shitty coffee machine. New Mexico is all prisons on that stretch. There were signs everywhere not to pick up hitchhikers. I was on a road trip and I had been driving about 6 hours down that stretch by myself, listening to music. There's nobody else at the rest stop and no cars. I get into my car and put on my seatbelt, and bam, there's a kid at the window. Like I said, one tapping on it, like they came out of nowhere. They just spawned in. One says, "Hey, can you give us a ride? We need a ride to the next town." The other just looks at me. I start to feel nauseous, really freaked out, and just a sense of dread. Why are these kids doing this at a rest stop? Why are they here in the middle of the night? Seriously, I said, "No, I can't, but I can call for help for you." They just repeated, "No, we just need a ride. Just give us a ride. Let us in." I said, "No, I can call for help. Just let us in. Just give us a ride." As the girl starts saying this, I notice that her eyes are jet black, the whole eyeball. I think, how the hell can she see? There's another one that has her face in a shadow, but when she reaches to tap on the window again, she gets into the streetlight, and I can see that her eyes are black as well. I revved the car and backed out and drove the hell away, fast. The whole time, I felt out of it, like I wasn't even in my own body. My nerves were on edge. I wanted to pull over and puke. I had a cold sweat. My heart rate was surging from the adrenaline. I got to the next truck stop, parked, and slept. I slept for about 6 hours, and it was mid-morning when the heat woke me up. My car windows were rolled up because I was not chancing anything. Nothing else happened on that road trip, and I never saw those kids again. So what do you think they were doing out there at this rest stop or stop in the middle of the night? What do you think was going to happen if he let them into the car? And better yet, how do they see with just a jet black eyeball? Maybe they see in some other form, like, I don't know, maybe they can see like spiritually or something. I have no idea. It's a good question. And this is another one where the person at first didn't realize that these kids had black eyes. So, what do you think was going on? Do you think that they just kind of do this to try and get you to say yes as fast as possible so you don't realize that they aren't human? And now this one seems to also kind of toe the line. So, with this one, he says that this happened in 2018. It was in March. He says, "I was walking home from my girlfriend Beth's apartment at 3 a.m. We had just had a fight, so I'm super pissed off. I really needed to cool down, to blow off some steam. I head to a park to just sit there and collect my thoughts. As I'm sitting on a bench, I hear some rustling in the small tree line. I thought that it was just a small animal, like a squirrel, a bird, or maybe just a bum. I hear some more rustling, and I look up to see 2 kids walking over to the swing set. I thought, what the hell? It's 3 a.m. These kids were no more than 10 and just came out of the tree line. I walk over to them and ask where their parents were. There's no response. I tell them that I'm not going to hurt them. I just want to take them back to their house. There's still no response. Both of them were staring at my shoes. I shake my head and say, "Well, okay, looks like I'm calling the police." Both kids look up at me and in unison shout no. That's when I noticed that both of their eyes were jet black. No pupils, no iris, just darkness. And then, all of a sudden, I get this incredible sense of dread that goes over me like a wave. These kids just kept staring straight at my face now as I was frozen in fear. The boy says, "Don't make us angry." The girl finishes the sentence, "Like you did Beth." I thought, how the hell do you know her name? The boy looks at the girl, they both nod, and then they wander out of the park and down the city street. The fear leaves me the farther they get away, and I decide to just head home. Suddenly, my phone starts to ring, and I freak out again. It's my girlfriend. She tells me that she had this incredible sense of dread and became really worried about me and my safety. I apologize, and I ask her if I can go back to her apartment. She says yes, and I go back and tell the story. She seems skeptical, but kind of believes me. I don't sleep the rest of the night. That was the only time I've ever seen them. I haven't heard about any more sightings in my city. So this one's interesting, because they were actively averse to having the authorities or police called on them. I wonder if it's because if attention is drawn to them, maybe they lose something or something happens to them. But that being said, if I was sitting at a park and I saw some kids wander out of the tree line at 3 o'clock in the morning and over to the swings, I'm just going to let them go on the swings. I'm going to have no part of that. That is a whole bunch of not my business, not my problem. Where I live is full of crazy stuff like this, so usually if you see it, the best thing to do for everybody involved is to just let it be. So it seems that a lot of the encounters I had in this one ended up being kind of leaning into the demonic aspect more than the gray alien hybrid aspect or the high strangeness aspect. But of course, I'm still curious as to what you think. Do you think that they are gray alien hybrids? Do you think that they're demonic hybrids? Do you think that they're the offspring of the Men in Black, or something else entirely? Maybe the grays are the ones that are demonic, and then that would mean that all of them are just demonic hybrids. Of course, let me know what you think down in the comments. And if everybody likes this one, I'm okay to do another one. I still have quite a few black-eyed people encounters, and I would love to do another one. So, of course, if you liked this episode of the podcast, be sure to like and subscribe. And if you would like to support the channel a little bit more, there's memberships and there's Patreon and there's all the stuff I talk about in every other video. And, of course, the hype feature that I've said it enough now where you guys know all about it. Some of you even know more about it than I do. So, I hope that you had a good week. I hope you have a good weekend. And, yeah, I'll catch you on Sunday. I hope to see you there. I thank you for pulling up a stump. And, yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Hope you have a good weekend, a good week. And if you didn't, maybe for 20 minutes it got just a little bit better. So, yeah, see you on Sunday.